From being a simple freighter to a transport for the Republic, sometimes used to smuggle death sticks and slaves, and seen by a future mono-limbed Sith Lord to be the perfect place to spit game.
You're exactly the way I remember you in my dreams.
This ship has seen a lot. What's up, Meta Nerds? In this video, we're going to talk about the Bolduc AA-9 Freighter liner, also known as the Coruscant Freighter. Its specs are the same in both Legends and Canon. It was built by Bolduc shipyards, who would also produce the SS-54 assault ship. And we can see that their look is to have these large engines at the end of their wings, a sort of signature design just like how you can tell when it's a Corellian ship. The AA-9 was 390 meters or 1,279 feet long, or about 3.4 times the length of the Consular class. Being 222 meters or 728 feet wide, it was about 10 AR-170s across, and at a height of 97 meters or 318 feet, it was the exact same height as a Zillo Beast. If it showed up here on Earth, it would be about 5.5 times the length of a Boeing 747, and about 3.5 times as wide, and around the same height as a 30-story building. For engines, it uses Type Dyne 2557 sublight drives, and was equipped with a Class 4 hyperdrive. That's slower than almost anything out there, being tied with the Death Star, so if you're looking for a quick trip across the galaxy, the AA-9 wouldn't be it. In atmosphere, it had a speed of 420 kilometers per hour, or 261 miles per hour. This makes it about half the speed of the Consular class cruiser. But it could hold up to 30,000 passengers, and did have many accommodations, and was maintained by a team of droids, including COO cook droids. The AA-9 had provisions for up to 3 months of supplies, which would be especially handy during those long trips due to that slow hyperdrive. This freighter was known to have at least 3 decks. The upper deck contained the bridge, as well as a very large cargo area. We don't have official numbers here, but given that it could carry supplies for 30,000 people for 3 months, while having to carry the luggage of all those passengers, I think we're looking at a ship that can carry at least 4,000 dewbacks. For reference, the CR-90 is about half the length, and it can carry 3,000 metric tons of cargo, so 4,000 dewbacks may be a conservative estimate if anything. To load up into the ship, the AA-9 had several very large panels on the top deck that would open to accept cargo, but these could also work as boarding ramps for the passengers. The middle decks on most of these models would be used to store cargo and foodstuffs, but some would be modified to house more passengers. And we don't know for sure what was carried on that last deck, but it can be presumed that this was either where the crew stayed, or for times when they needed to carry extra cargo. The bow of this ship contains this large T-shape made out of transparent steel, which may have worked as a sort of observation area for the passengers. As for its history, the AA-9 would become very popular on Coruscant, being cheap, reliable, and able to transport a ton of passengers, perfect for the Ecumenopolis, and that's why it got the nickname the Coruscant Freighter. In the year 22 BBY, one named the Genderian Valley was used by Anakin and Padme to travel to Naboo. Following the failed assassination attempt on Padme, they disguised themselves as refugees. Just moments later would be the opening of the Clone Wars, and that same year the refugee relief movement would begin converting these freighters into refugee transports, rescuing loyalists from separatist-owned worlds. Now that's all canon, but there's a lot more expanded upon in Legends. 6 months after the start of the Clone Wars, the AA-9 known as the Star of Isken was used to transport former Supreme Chancellor Valorum into political exile. However, an Anzat assassin hired by the Separatists, named Somchate, was on board the Isken as well. She would kill Valorum in the traditional Anzati way of drinking his soup, allowing these tentacles to extend from her face and feed on Valorum. After this pre-flight meal, she was able to escape, but not before sabotaging the Isken. It would explode, killing everyone on board and leaving no evidence of the act she committed. And though many were killed on board, this flaming hulk of 390 meters of ship would come crashing into the cityscape, killing even more people on the way down. This shocking death of a former Supreme Chancellor caused public outrage, which led to the passing of new legislation called the Enhanced Security and Enforcement Act. Though controversial, it gave Supreme Chancellor Palpatine even more control over security on Coruscant. And as you might have guessed, Darth Sidious was behind this, as Valorum was one of the biggest detractors of emergency powers, an act that would be passed just a day after the Isken exploded. The AA-9 would not only see service in civilian use, but it would actually be used by the Republic for military purposes as well. In its military role, it was nicknamed the Gunship Transport and would be seen on numerous worlds. Here it could work as a smaller and cheaper alternative to the Acclimator and Venator, which were often used to transport goods to the warfront. And with its enormous 30,000 passenger capacity, it also made for a hell of a clone troop transport. That's 15 times the troops found on the Venator, and almost twice that of the Acclimator. Most of these gunship transports would be painted a dark brown color, differing from the gray norm of the Republic, but during the Battle of Alderaan a variant was painted white and blue, and was used alongside acclimators. The only problem was that this thing remained unarmed, relying completely on starfighter defense. And now with some lucrative military contracts, this convinced Bolduc shipyards to start working on the SS-54 assault ship, a craft that would notably be used by the bounty hunter Sugi. Jango Fett would encounter an AA-9 on the planet Malastare, where it was being used by the force-sensitive cult the Bando Gora. They would use these to transfer drugs and slaves from a local crime lord named Zabalto, who ran an enormous death stick factory on Malastare. When Jango boarded one of these ships, he saw that all of the instrument panels and symbols were written in Huttese, and so he knew that the Hutts must have been helping the Bando Gora. After the Clone Wars, we don't hear much more of this ship, but it was used 20 years later in the Galactic Civil War, and in canon we have one last appearance of the AA-9. Just 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, rebels stationed on the planet Imver would discover an AA-9 and use it to flee from Imperial forces. So that's it for its history and breakdown, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. Just wanted to point out that the Razor Crest used by the Mandalorian may have been built by the same company. It's similar in the engine placement and just overall look, and then you also got the fact that the Halo was used by another bounty hunter, so maybe there's a connection there. The AA-9 first appeared in Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones. The gunship transport variant would first appear in the Clone Wars expansion to Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, and the one for smuggling was in Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's kind of funny to note, but the gunship transport in-game is considerably smaller than the AA-9 is on screen. This is most likely done to try and keep it in line with other units, like how we see the GR-75 being similar in length to the Sentinel-class landing craft, when really it's about 3 times as long. And a little note on the inconsistency of the story of the Star of Isken. When the Clone Wars TV show was running, the episode titled The Lost One depicted Chancellor Valorum as being alive, despite the comic The Star of Isken showing that he had died almost a year prior. This inconsistency was never explained by Lucasfilm, and the show is only off the hook now since the expanded universe was declared non-canon. Though a lot of stuff in canon doesn't directly contradict stuff in Legends, the fact that the Clone Wars TV show was kept canon, it definitely nullifies the Star of Isken incident. So that's it for the AA-9, the Coruscant Freighter. If you want to connect with us on social media, find ways that you can help support this channel for free, or check out our Patreon, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon, but most important of all, remember, a space bus is no place to hit on royalty, and the Force will be with you always.